The Catholic Church is under fire again for its handling of the victims of clerical abuse. Some victims say their treatment at the hands of the Melbourne Archdiocese has re-traumatised them. Now complaints have been lodged against the psychologist in charge of organising their counselling and support. Liz Hobday reports.
Let's pause for a moment at the beginning of our Mass, asking for forgiveness for our sins.
Geelong-based priest Father Kevin Dillon spends hours every week talking to abuse victims. A number of them have gone through what's known as the Melbourne response.
Most of the people I speak to have found it extremely difficult and very challenging, and in many cases wish they hadn't been through it.
The Church says the Melbourne response is a genuine attempt to help victims, one that acknowledges their pain and provides access to compensation, ongoing counselling and medical support. But for some, it falls short.
It re-traumatises you. You come out feeling just like a piece of dirt.
This woman, who wishes to be known only as Sandra, says the abuse she suffered from a priest has left her with ongoing medical problems.
I was raped as well as sexually abused in the Mercy Hospital.
She's one of more than 300 victims of abuse who've sought help from the Melbourne response, and about 500 people who've been given support through its counselling referral arm, CareLink.
It was all arranged that I could go up for 10 days to Warburton and that they would pay for my week's wages because I couldn't afford to take, time without pay.
Several other victims dissatisfied with the system say CareLink has paid for things that go beyond counselling or medical support, including accommodation, clothes, sets of tyres and holidays. The Church says
CareLink has flexibility to tailor its assistance to the unique needs of each individual victim. CareLink seeks to exercise its discretion with compassion and based on its knowledge of the victim.
Sandra also claims after a dispute with CareLink over her treating doctor, there were problems reimbursing her medical bills.
The bottom line is that if they are sincere in assisting victims in order to become healthy or to get on with their life, then why create obstacles to prevent them from accessing what their doctors, prescribe?
Sandra is one of 5 victims who've complained about the conduct of CareLink's Susan Sharkey to the Psychology Board of Australia. The allegations against Susan Sharkey, which have yet to be tested, include breaches of confidentiality and the sudden withdrawal of support services. Several previous complaints against Ms Sharkey have been dismissed.
There are a very small number of CareLink clients who've declined to comply with CareLink's protocols and then described CareLink's eventual refusal to fund further treatment as a withdrawal of support.
The Melbourne Archdiocese says it has full confidence in Susan Sharkey. Sandra and another victim took their problems to the man who set up the system in 1996, now the head of the Catholic Church in Australia, Cardinal George Pell.
If the Melbourne response was functioning adequately, why would have I had the need to go to Cardinal Pell to request assistance?
He sent a letter of apology and a cheque.
I think that he could have directed the people in Melbourne, if he couldn't personally do it, to look at what they are doing and listen to what the victims are saying.
The Church has denied it's buying off victims who speak out about the Melbourne response. Cardinal Pell's Archdiocese of Sydney says,
"A payment was made as a charitable gesture, and doing so does not reflect any criticism of the Melbourne response."
Lawyer Paul Holdway has represented about 50 victims of abuse who've gone through the Melbourne response.
Well, the overwhelming majority of victims are what we just have to say poor. Their ability to earn income is limited by the effects of the abuse on their life.
He says some of the work of the Melbourne response, including awarding compensation, is put on hold if victims report their abuse to the authorities.
There are some victims who would sit there and go, do I want to get involved in a very public process through the police, or do I want to say, no, I don't want to go to the police so that my immediate needs could be met by this process? Certainly.
The most far-reaching sanction
The Melbourne response has an independent commissioner, Peter O'Callaghan QC, appointed by the church to determine whether the complaints of victims are genuine.
Most of them, they have found the sense of inquiry from the beginning of being sort of under investigation, albeit the independent commissioner acknowledges that most of them are genuine, and some have felt more intimidated than others. I wouldn't suggest that it's his intention.
Peter O'Callaghan declined to be interviewed by the ABC. In a statement, he said,
"My priority is to establish the truth and ensuring that justice is done. Where a complainant has a valid complaint, my priorities are ensuring the victim receives counselling and compensation, and the offender is dealt with."
Paul Holdway says victims should be told that if they do go to police, their initial conversation with Peter O'Callaghan could be used in court.
That record of interview can be used, and has been in a number of cases, in a criminal trial.
While the Melbourne Archdiocese says it does not believe an external review would help victims because it would violate their privacy, Father Dillon is one of those calling for outside scrutiny of the process. He says in 16 years, the church has never asked victims what they think.
To me, that's been a major deficiency of a process that's been in place for a long time, and surely you ask the people for whom it's meant to be designed to heal and help, whether in fact they have been healed and helped.
Liz Hobday with that report.